Hi, everyone. Jeremy Horowitz, the Director of Marketing Partnerships here at Daasity. And today I'm going to be talking about how you can determine your customer acquisition costs, or essentially how much money you can spend to acquire a new customer. Now, we see this be asked a lot, and there's a lot of common questions on how do I determine this? What data do I look at to make this decision? So I'm going to walk you through a simple spreadsheet that we help our brands use of how they can really figure out what they can spend to acquire a customer. Now, we're going to start off with the most basic example today. If you all really want to hear more complicated or more sophisticated models, let us know in the comments down below, and we can always do another one of these. All right, so let's dive into the spreadsheet. So I've built out this really simple spreadsheet, and I'm going to walk through all of the metrics here so that everybody has a good idea of what we're talking about. So when you're looking at determining your CAC and how much you can spend in acquisition costs, you want to look at 5 key metrics. And I'll go in order. So first is your AOV. AOV is just going to be the total amount of top line value or revenue that a customer spends when they make that first purchase from your store. The second one is your gross margin percentage. Now you can get very granular with this, but for now, let's just use your store-wide average gross margin percentage across your entire catalog to figure out the math. Then you'll see in this row, we're just going to essentially multiply your AOV by your gross margin to understand how many dollars of gross margin we're bringing in that first sale. The next data point we're going to be looking at for one of our use cases is going to be your lifetime value, or essentially the sum of all of the gross margin that you make from a customer over the lifetime that they're a customer from your brand. And to keep things simple today, we're going to go with a year, but this is something that you can pull from your platform and determine based on what time horizon you want to look at. The next is going to be that actual CAC, or that maximum marketing spend you can spend to acquire a new customer, and then your contribution margin, which is essentially just a sum of your AOV you get down to your gross margin by subtracting out your costs to get to your gross margin. Then from there, subtracting out your marketing costs to get to your contribution margin. So essentially before you have to pay for general and administration, things like paying for your team, paying for your offices, paying for any operational parts of your business outside of getting a product to customers, this is how much money you're going to make. So for the purpose of today, let's just assume that we want to make $13 in contribution margin from every customer that we acquire. So there's 2 methods that we're going to review today, the first order method and the LTV method, and I'll break down the nuances of each. So for the first order method, we essentially want to be profitable on that first purchase, and we're only willing to spend a certain amount of money to get to acquiring that new customer while maintaining profitability. So looking at this example, if we have a $65 order at a 50% margin, we're going to net out with $32.50 just from subtracting out product costs. Then we're going to ignore LTV for this specific analysis because we're looking to make that first purchase profitable. So if we want to hit a target of $13 out of every order that goes into our contribution margin, we're going to net out of we can spend a maximum of $19.50 to acquire that new customer. Now let's take a little bit of a different twist and look at the LTV method. So instead of looking at just what we make from profit from that first order, we're going to look at what's the lifetime value of the customer over 12 months. So we have the same $65 order, the same 50% gross margin, which nets us out at each order, we're going to make $32.50 from the customer. The difference here is that we're no longer looking at the $32.50 to determine our marketing costs, but we're going to be looking at a $65 LTV, or essentially they make 2 purchases in that 12-month horizon. So the major difference here, even if we assume that we still want to hit that same $13 contribution margin, we can now spend up to $52 in marketing costs because we're anchoring it against what's our LTV over 12 months, not what's our profit on that first purchase. And so this is going to be very different for every business. You need to determine based on your cash flow and based on what you're comfortable with, what makes the most sense for you. Another important part 2 of this, and we've covered this in a data snacks recently, of what's your CAC payback period to understand how aggressively you can be here. But the reason why you want to look at these 2 methods and the reason why you want to run this analysis at different points in time and for different parts of your business when this gets more complex is you can adjust how aggressively you want to spend in your acquisition costs to be more aggressive in customer acquisition and to acquire more customers. Obviously, the brand that can spend $52 to acquire a new customer is going to acquire a lot more customers and probably faster than the brand that can afford to spend $19.50. But you really need to understand the cash flow of your business. Can you actually afford to spend that much money up front and wait that 12 months to recoup that profit, to find out if this is right for you? So this is a sliding scale. There isn't any really right answer here. This just really comes down to what are your numbers for your business? How does this make the most sense? And what can we afford to do from a cash flow perspective right now? So we hope that this was helpful. We hope that you enjoyed this. If you do want to learn more, if there are other areas that you want to look at, if there are other data points that you want to include here, let us know. There are many ways that we can make this. We can layer on additional analysis from looking at multiple channels, looking at different products that people purchase on their first order, looking at a lot of different factors. Also, what happens when customers make a higher repurchase rate. There's a lot of factors here that we can add on to make this more robust, to really get granular for your business. So definitely let us know what you'd like us to include in the next video.